Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something deeply personal. I'm taking you all the way back to my youth in 1980s rural Kenya. We're going to explore how circumstance, memory, and quite literally, love at first sight all intertwined to shape a chapter of my life that I will absolutely never forget.
I am sorry, Robbie. Just 4 words, right? But those 4 devastating words ended a massive chapter of my young life. It's such a simple sentence, but honestly, for a really long time, it was one of the most difficult sentences for me to forget. So today, we're looking back at how a genuinely beautiful, innocent connection made in my youth eventually led to such profound heartbreak. Now, what's really fascinating here is how my personal heartbreak felt inevitably tied to the broader socioeconomic realities of how I grew up. You see, I was a typical village boy. But looking back, I often wonder, were the pure emotions of a teenage romance just completely outmatched by the heavy hand of poverty and circumstance? To really wrap our heads around my circumstance, we actually have to go back to the historical legacy of the 1960s land registration. Basically, right before independence, communal land was turned into private property, and the process was deeply marred by favoritism. Colonial chiefs, clan elders, and their associates secured these massive, fertile tracts of land. Meanwhile, families like mine, we were left with small, rocky, super steep parcels. This historical division pretty much cemented our modest socioeconomic status right from the get-go.
But here's the wild part. Despite my own family's rocky plot, the Embu district as a whole was like an absolute paradise. It sits right on the southern slopes of the majestic Mount Kenya, so it was this breathtakingly green, bountiful landscape. The countryside stayed lush pretty much year-round, which provided this stark, almost ironic contrast to the economic struggles that individual families like mine were dealing with daily.
And all that fertile volcanic soil, it produced our economic lifeline. I'm talking rolling tea plantations and expansive coffee bushes just dominating the landscape. Add in abundant food crops like maize, beans, bananas, and root tubers, these yields literally sustained our people. They were the absolute beating heart of the region.
Okay, moving on to my teenage years. After primary school, I went to King Dave's Secondary. We all proudly nicknamed our school the military base, and man, we absolutely loved that title. The school actually used to be notorious for producing highly mischievous boys, but by the time I showed up, it was a classic reformed rake situation. The bad reputation had mostly faded away, leaving us with just that really cool nickname.
Now, when you're at secondary school, you have a lot of extracurricular choices. But being a guy who loved fun and social interaction, I made a highly strategic move. I totally skipped the young farmers in the Young Christian Society and eagerly joined the drama and dancing clubs instead. Trust me, for a village boy looking to expand his horizons, this was absolutely the place to be.
And that brings us to a crucial point. Back then, interacting with the opposite gender was incredibly rare. The schools were strictly separated. So when our drama club got an invitation from a neighboring school, St. Angela Girls High School, it felt like an absolute gift from heaven. It was a chance to finally see some of my old primary school classmates, like my neighbor Rue, and just experience the sheer thrill of a joint social event. As you can imagine, we took our preparations very seriously, but pragmatically. First, we wrote and performed a lighthearted original comedy. Why? Simply to hide our acting weaknesses in case things went south. Also, our school didn't actually own a bus, so we had to hire a public service matatu for the trip. We woke up super early for final Saturday rehearsals, but of course, our matatu arrived late, and we ended up hitting the road nearly an hour behind schedule. Honestly though, that delay didn't dampen our spirits at all, because the journey itself was spectacular. We traveled through an area known locally as Kiandari. We were navigating these winding roads and steep hills, crossing the magnificent Rupingazi Valley, which is home to a major tributary of the River Tana, Kenya's longest river. Looking out the windows at that landscape of forests, rivers, and rolling hills, it was just breathtaking.
So we finally pulled up to St. Angela around 3 o'clock that afternoon, and our hosts were incredibly gracious right out of the gate. The very moment I stepped out of the vehicle, I was warmly greeted and pulled into a hug by my childhood friend and former primary classmate, Rosa.
But here's the thing. Rosa wasn't alone. She was standing next to this stunningly beautiful girl. Rosa turned to me and said, "Robbie, meet Jay." I looked at her, and the exact moment our eyes met, something profound shifted inside me. It was an undeniable, absolute, instant attraction. Pure love at first sight. But before I could even process what was hitting me, we were swept right into the school hall for the main program. And let me tell you, this hall was packed capacity.
literally filled with students and teachers. The atmosphere was completely electric. It was noisy, vibrating, and buzzing with the excited energy of the upcoming performances.
The St. Angela girls took the stage first, and wow, they were outstanding. They portrayed male characters so convincingly that we genuinely started panicking that we'd be completely outshone. But when it was our turn, we gave it everything we had. Our self-written comedy actually landed perfectly, and hearing the enthusiastic cheers from the crowd was a massive wave of relief. In the end, there was just this deep, mutual admiration between the two schools.
Then we got to the moment everyone was actually waiting for, the dance session. Talk about high-stakes social interaction. The boys were seated on one side of the hall, the girls directly opposite on the other side. We're all just staring at each other across the room, while the DJ set up his gear and the MC got ready to announce whose turn it was to pick a partner.
When the MC finally announced it was the girls' turn to choose, my heart practically jumped out of my chest. I sat there watching some of the mischievous girls pretend to walk straight toward a specific boy, only to quickly pivot and pick someone else at the absolute last second. Sitting there, I was entirely consumed by one terrifying thought. Would anyone choose me?
And then I saw a girl walking directly across the floor, toward me. She didn't veer off, she didn't pivot, she stopped right in front of me, smiled this incredibly warm smile, and spoke the 6 most musical words I had ever heard in my young life. "May I dance with you, please?" I could barely believe my ears. Without a single moment of hesitation, I nodded.
It was Jay. As we stepped onto the floor, the DJ played a slow melody, and ironically enough, it was a track called Love is Unfair by the popular local musician CDM Karadu. Swaying there to the music, I quickly realized 2 things. 1, she was an excellent dancer, and 2, I was hopelessly, completely in love.
We barely spoke a single word during the entire song, but I was falling for literally everything about her. Her captivating smile, her expressive eyes, that natural confidence she had walking across the floor to pick me, and her undeniable warmth. It was just this single magical moment, perfectly locked in time. When the event finally wrapped up and I left St. Angela that evening, I promised Jay we would stay in touch. It felt like such an innocent promise, right? The beginning of a truly beautiful story. I walked away feeling richer for having made this amazing connection, completely oblivious to the fact that this massive new chapter in my life would eventually end in total heartbreak. And that brings us to the end of this explainer, leaving us with a deeply poignant question. How did a perfect moment, born in those lush, beautiful valleys of Embu, unravel into such a painful farewell? Did the socio-economic ghosts of my region's past, those rocky slopes my family inherited, ultimately doom a romance that started with such a perfect dance? It's a memory of love and loss that really proves something profound. Sometimes our personal stories are completely inseparable from the history beneath our feet. So, what do you think?